Good afternoon to you all, and a really warm welcome to everyone joining us today for our event on breaking into investment banking. We're the largest led student business society in London, and we regularly run events such as this one for anyone interested in the world of business. We're very fortunate today to have a great speaker with us, Afzal Hussein, founder of Simply and ex-asset management at Goldman Sachs. Before we get into our session today, I would just like to outline the schedule. Shortly, I will pass over to Afzal to speak about breaking into investment banking, including the application process and perfecting CVs. I would like to emphasize the opportunity to ask questions in the YouTube chat function throughout the session, as we will leave time for a Q&A at the end, which is a great opportunity to clarify any points or ask anything related that might help. But without further ado, I'd like to hand over to Afzal and get started. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much. First and foremost, I want to say thank you to everyone for joining. What is it? It's 6 p.m. on a Thursday. I'm sure you guys might have better things to do at home, but yeah, I appreciate your time. Thank you for King's Business Club for inviting me. I'm always happy to help out where I can and share some advice to, future graduates, students, young professionals. Today's presentation, it's going to be focusing on, I'm going to touch on my personal journey and background, where I was in uni and how I secured internships and got into Goldman's, to where I am now. And so I've kind of moved away from banking, gone into entrepreneurship. And then I'll touch on two of the key things that you should be thinking about when you're applying to not just investment banks, but to consulting firms, law firms, any, aspirational career. You need a strong CV and a strong cover letter. And so those are going to be two areas that I'm going to touch on, and tips that you can use, practical tips to use when creating your CVs and cover letters. And then I'll share a few useful links. And then after that, we'll go into a Q&A. Honestly, I think Q&A is usually the most valuable part of these type of sessions. Don't be scared to ask any questions. Send it into the chat, whether that's on YouTube or the Zoom, however the team want you to send them in. But yeah, without any further ado, let's get straight into it. I've got a few slides, so I'll share my screen. So this is kind of, on one page, my story from uni to today. I went to Queen Mary University of London, 2011 to 2014. And at that time, I studied economics and finance. I knew I wanted to kind of go and work in the city, but I wasn't sure exactly to do what. So that first year was exploration phase. So I just wanted to, so before I got to uni, I did my A-levels. Some of you might do international baccalaureate, but I did my A-levels. My first year, I did AS maths, physics, biology, and geography. And then the grades I got were terrible. I got a D, a E, a U, and a U. And at that point, I thought, oh man, my life is over. My mom's going to kill me, Asian household. I'm going to get beaten, but fortunately, that didn't happen. It was all right. My mom was cool. She told me, just work hard, take the year again if you want, and work hard. So I actually retook that first year. It was a wake-up call, and then I got my A's and B's and stuff. Got into Queen Mary, and I knew, all right, I'm not at Oxford or Cambridge, and if I want to break into an investment bank, I need to secure as much relevant experience and then do extracurricular activities and all of that as possible. So in my first year, I did spring weeks at BlackRock, RBS, PwC, and EDF Trading. Now, what's important to note is I didn't get those because I was amazing at applications and all of that. It's because at Queen Mary, we had a mentorship program with BlackRock. I had a mentor. I just asked him, can I spend a week in your offices? And then I got insight into BlackRock, which is the world's largest asset manager. I got insight into the trading floor, so the portfolio management teams, and I got insight into the sales teams, the distribution side. So that was cool. I really liked it. RBS was a spring week. I did the typical application process, but it wasn't in the front office, it was in the back office, so operations. And so that gave me that insight. PwC, it was in accounting, and then EDF Trading, I got a scholarship when I was going to uni because the sixth form that I went to, next to it was EDF Trading's head office. Their CEO wanted to kind of help out a few students. I managed to secure a sponsorship. And then I reached out to him and I said, or his assistant, and I said, can I spend a week on your trading floor over the summer? And they said, yeah. So half of these opportunities came from me being proactive and asking, going out of my way and asking. And then it led to, strong experience on my CV. So then first year, my CV was looking good. Yes, I didn't have, Queen Mary's a great uni, but it's not like a top tier, like Oxford, Cambridge, LSE. UCL, Imperial, Kings, etc. But it's still good. And so you have to kind of understand your position and try and leverage what you can. In this case, I leveraged experience. So that allowed me to go into my second year applications and interviews and focus only on asset management and private banking, because that's what I really enjoyed from my previous experiences. And then because I knew I enjoyed my time at BlackRock, so it was asset management, I knew I could be a bit more targeted with my applications in second year. Second year came around, I got my offer from Barclays Private Banking and Goldman Sachs Asset Management, and I went for Goldman's and did the 10-week summer internship and then converted that into a grad scheme offer after I graduated. So I was happy with that. Final year, went to uni, didn't have to do a single application, and then graduated and started at Goldman's. Now, 2014 to 2018 was an interesting phase because I started at Goldman's and it was good. But after 2 years, the learning curve kind of flattened. And then it come to a point where, and I always tell graduates this, within that 2 to 5 year phase of you starting your career, it's important to step back and analyze, do you really enjoy this job? Can you see yourself doing it for 20, 30 years? Because if you stay in that spot, you're going to climb and it's going to be great. But is it what you want to do? And so at that point, I was really losing my interest in the world of banking and growing an interest in entrepreneurship. And so I thought, you know what, let me take a step back. Shall I take a career risk? I've got the rest of my career ahead of me. If I stay in this seat, which I'm not really enjoying anymore, I'm gonna, climb. And then I look at my seniors, so the VPs and the MDs, and there was no one that I really aspired to be like. The alternative was to quit the world of banking and finance, start my own thing. If that works, great. If it doesn't work after a year or 2 years, then I'll just go back into banking. Goldman Sachs will always be there. If not Goldman's, JP Morgan. If not JP Morgan, Morgan Stanley, so on and so forth. And so it took me a year and a half to decide. And then after 3 years at Goldman's, I decided, I'm going to take the leap of faith and start my own journey, basically, of entrepreneurship and like public speaking and content creation on YouTube. So while I was at Goldman's, I started CV Doctor, which was a career consulting website where I would help students and graduates break into top industries. And then 2018, left the world of banking and finance and started pursuing entrepreneurship full time. So since 2018 to now, I've been working on a few projects. The two main projects I work on, or the two main things, one is the YouTube channel, but secondly, it's Simply. So this is a startup I'm currently building. We were on the App Store, but we've decided to take it off as a mobile app and create a desktop website because no one takes video calls on their phones anymore. Meetings like this happen over Zoom. So we're currently building that. It basically connects students or applicants with those who have secured offers for one-to-one video calls. And then there's Skillshare and CV Doctor. You'll see the links to those later on. But that's a quick whistle-stop tour of my career since being a student. And it feels so weird that 2011 was exactly 10 years ago. So to think that I was in first year uni 10 years ago is actually mad. But it just goes to show time flies. And my advice to you guys, to all of you on your journeys would be try and be a bit more explorative rather than just following that one route. Like you don't want to just follow what everyone else is following, especially nowadays, like banking and all these like banking, law, consulting. It used to be cool. Like these careers used to be super sexy and cool back in the day, and they still are to some extent. But nowadays you've got big tech, you've got startups, you've got venture capital, all these other areas that you should definitely explore because a lot of them pay just as much, if not more, and they all come with better work-life balance, and they're very interesting. So definitely pursue banking careers, but also keep your eyes out for alternative careers as well. Now, onto CV tips. Regardless, whatever career you go into, you need to have a strong CV, whether you are, and also if you're applying for any type of role, you need a strong CV. At the graduate level, students and graduates, you should be creating a one-page CV. And the reason for that, especially in investment banking, is Goldman's, JP's, all these big firms, they receive hundreds of thousands of applications and they don't have time to look at the second or third page of a CV. At the end of the day, most people, like the analysts and the associates and the VPs on the desks at these banks, are looking at your CV. So it's not just HR people. So keep your CV to one page. You don't need a personal bio. So by personal bio, I mean the, 2 or 3 sentences at the top of your CV saying, I'm a highly motivated student, blah, 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 because the rest of your CV should reiterate that anyway. So you don't need it. It's repetitive. And secondly, everyone writes the same thing. And so you don't need to waste space on that. You don't need a photo as well. I know a lot of students want to put a photo of themselves. You don't need that. It's a waste of space. 30-second rule, very, very important. You have to give your CV to someone. Always assume the person that's going to look at your CV will look at it for less than 30 seconds. So you give your CV, print it out, give it to a friend or a family member, ask them to read it, and then take it away from them after 30 seconds and ask them what stood out or what can they remember from your CV. And if they tell you that, they remember some solid extracurricular activities or a given work experience, that's good. If they tell you that they remember, some irrelevant information or your hobbies, then you need to reposition your CV and structure it accordingly. If you've got like special awards or unique awards or scholarships or something that stands out, don't be afraid to underline it or bold it and then italicize it so it stands out and grabs the reader's attention. Structure is very important. You want to start with your education at the top. You put your degree. You can put predicted first class, honestly, because a lot of people get to final year, they might be averaging a 2.2 and then they put in the work and then they get a first class degree. You don't want to sell yourself short. So many students sell themselves short on their CVs and it costs them an interview, and you don't want to do that. So you put your degree course. You don't need to list every single module that you are studying. Because, if you're doing a finance and econ degree, everyone knows the modules, micro, macro, a few maths, statistics, etc. And so no one really cares. If you're doing geography or history or any alternative degree, that's completely fine. Employers don't care about what degree you do these days. They hire anyone who can pass the process and then ace their interviews. After your education section, also include your IB, International Baccalaureate, and A-level grades. You don't need to do GCSEs, but you can if you want. Below that, you're going to have your key section, so work experience or relevant work experience. That's where you're going to list 2 or 3 different work experiences that you've had, and you're going to have 2 or 3 bullet points for each of those. Below that, you're going to have extracurricular activities and leadership experience. So this is where you're going to put like member of a society, or if you have a leadership position on a society, and any hobbies and stuff, or not hobbies, any extracurricular activities and volunteering efforts. Below that, you're going to have your other, so interests and software or skills and certificates. So if you can put your strengths in Microsoft Office, PowerPoint, Word. You can put any other software that you are confident in using. You can put your hobbies, how many languages you speak, so on and so forth. You don't need to put at the bottom of your CV references available upon request. And the reason for that is because if you make it through in the application process, then later on the bank will reach out to you and ask you for details of references. In fact, most investment banks hire external companies to do that due diligence process on their behalf. So that will happen later on. Powerful bullet points. This is where a lot of students kind of fail when it comes to creating a strong CV. Too many students put basic bullet points that don't give much detail to the reader. So someone might say, I worked as a barista at Starbucks and learned how to work as part of a team. What you want to do with a powerful bullet point is you want to start with a power word or action verb. So it could be develop, it could be worked, developed, monitored, searched, analyzed, etc., etc. If you Google search action verbs or powerful verbs, you'll get a list of hundreds, and you should use those at the beginning of your bullet points. And then you want to give the information. So what did you do as part of this experience? And then at the end, the key to a powerful bullet point is the result achieved or the skill that you developed. So for example, worked as part of the barista team at Starbucks, as a result, developed my attention to detail, or as a result, developed my team working skills. As a result, developed my interpersonal skills. Another one we can say is worked as part of a team during a university project or coursework. This resulted in me enriching my analytical skills, problem-solving skills, so on and so forth. You get the idea, right? So start with an action verb, give the explanation, and then say a result achieved or a skill that you developed. The result achieved is important because when you're applying to investment banks, these are results-driven companies, and they want to hire people that can show that they have a proven record or track record of achieving results. So if you're part of the marketing team of a society, you could say you led the marketing efforts of XYZ events. As a result, you grew member signups by 30% year on year. So it shows results, and this is what the banks look for. So powerful bullet points, very important. Color, keep your CV black and white. That's very simple, straightforward. It doesn't need to be fancy. You're not applying to like a marketing firm or, it's banking, it's black and white, it's boring. Keep it simple, professional. And then margins and spaces. You need your CV to look very pristine, very organized, very well structured. If you don't, it's just going to say a lot about you as an individual. When you work for these organizations, you are working on so many different pitch books, so many different documents that are going to clients. These clients are going to be involved in millions of pounds of deals with the bank that you're working on, whether it's trades, whether it's in asset management, in trading, in investment banking, whatever it is. Even in the back office as well, you're going to be sending documents back and forth internally and externally. And if you can't create documents that look nice and tidy, they're just the person that's going to be looking at your CV, who is potentially going to have you join in their team. They're not going to want to work with you because you're not organized. Your work doesn't look nice and neat. And so it will reflect badly on them. So always think about, if you were a VP on a desk, would you hire yourself as an analyst? So always ask that question to yourself. And then font and size. So, on a one-page CV, don't go above font size 12. And don't go below font size 10. I always tell students use 10 because it means you can fit more onto the page and it looks fine. Anything less than 10 looks a bit too small and it doesn't look too good. In terms of font, plain and simple, Times New Roman, keeps it professional. You can use Arial or Calibri, but for banks, my go-to is Times New Roman. Always remember, presentable and high quality CVs are the ones that stand out. That brings me on to cover letters. So those are tips on CVs. If you've got any questions, we're going to do Q&A at the end, but conscious of time, so I'll move on to cover letters now. So very, very important. I'm sure a lot of you know this, but I'm conscious that I'm sure there's a lot of first years on this who have, who are starting uni for the first time. And so you're new to all of this, but it's very important. Make sure you create a cover letter that has 3 key sections. The first section is, why do you want to work for this organization? Why do you want to work for Goldman Sachs? Why do you want to work for JP Morgan? Why do you want to work for Morgan Stanley, etc., etc.? Second section is, why this division? Why operations? Why asset management? Why trading? And third, why you? So this part you can leverage your CV, you can touch on your experiences and how it ties into your motivations for working in the industry, in the division, and you particularly as a candidate. So why the firm? This is where you need to research each organization separately and find the specific reasons that stand out to you for that organization. So for me, it was like Goldman, it's a leader in the field. I did my research on the asset management division, Goldman as a firm. There, one thing that I touched on specifically was basically they do a lot of work with charities and their local communities. So they have initiative called 10,000 Women, where they invest in 10,000 women entrepreneurs. They do 10,000 small businesses, so on and so forth. Each organization has their various charity initiatives. Some might align with you, some might not. Other areas, some organizations might be focused on, ESG investing, environmental, social, and governance investing. That might relate to you because you care about the environment. You need to find your specific reason and how that relates to any given organization. The key is, the more specific you can be, the better it looks on your CV. So this brings me on to section 2. So why the division? Why asset management specifically? For me, I had experience at BlackRock. I realized this type of work suited my skill set. It was of interest to me. I didn't want to work as an investment professional. I wanted to work as in the sales teams, because I had good relationship building skills, public speaking skills, so on and so forth. And I displayed that and I mentioned that. And also I name dropped. So this is jumping ahead a bit into point number 2. I mentioned on my cover letter, having spoken to so-and-so who's an associate at your organization, they told me that your organization gives a lot of responsibility early on to its analysts and interns, for example. And so that shows the person that's reading the cover letter, okay, this candidate has done their research. They've actually gone and met one of our employees, whether it's online or in person, doesn't matter. They've gone and had the conversation. And, you know, they are serious about this. They like our firm, they've met the people, they've spoken to employees. And so when you can name drop, it makes your cover letter stand out compared to other candidates who haven't name dropped. And then the last bit, why you? This is where you tie into your skill set. So you need to understand what makes you the right candidate for that division. So for me, it was asset management, sales focus, relationship building, long-term, good work-life balance. For you, it might be markets and trading. You need to display that you've been trading, you know, on your own account, whether it's a demo account or not, why you're interested in a specific asset class, etc., etc. If it's IBD, you need to explain what attracts you to mergers and acquisitions or equity capital markets. Why do you think you've got the right skill set, the analytical skills, the attention to detail, so on and so forth. Every point you make, you need to back it up with an example. It's like writing an essay at school. You give a point, you give it an evidence, and you give an explanation. Also on your cover letter, you can include results achieved, but keep it simple. Why this firm? Why this division? Why you? It's hard. So point 2, it's hard to network, obviously, COVID restrictions, but you still got LinkedIn. You can still reach out to people through, I don't know, social media, but it's trickier. That's why you need to keep an eye out on the different companies' websites. So for every company that you want to apply to, make sure you're checking up on their websites. Make sure you're following them on social media, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, all of that. And those are important because whenever you are following social media pages of these companies, they might post stuff that they won't have on their website. And then they might do like a profile of a current analyst or whoever. You can take that person's name, reach out to them on LinkedIn, say you read about them on this post from their company, and it's a touch point. So the key to getting or building your network is having a touch point to someone. If you randomly reach out to anyone, they're not going to be inclined to kind of respond to you. But if you have a touch point, if you've gone out of your way to find out a bit about them, they're more inclined to reach out to respond to you. Also, when you're reaching out to people in the industry, keep your messages short. A lot of people in the industry get tons of messages. And when you see a message from a student or a graduate that is really long, you just don't have the time to read it and respond. So keep your messages short and sweet. Name drop, you could do that on your cover letter. You can also do it on your CV if you want, but don't do it too much. Some people ask me, can I name drop someone if they're not an employee of the organization I'm applying to? Don't do that. It just doesn't look good. They might think that you're applying to the wrong organization. So the person that I name dropped was an associate at Goldman's in asset management. So I name dropped him on my Goldman's asset management CV. And then last but not least, read and research. So keep up to date with the news. If you Google search the company that you're applying to and then click on news in the Google tab, you'll see the latest news with that organization. Find something positive, find something that you can talk about in your interviews and in your cover letters, and then include it there. The more I want you to take away, like the more specific you can be in your cover letter about the organization, the more likely you are to get through to the next stage of the process. Most students and graduates will just use the exact same cover letter for every application. And that might work for some, but it's better to increase your chances by tweaking it here and there to make it specific for the given organization you're applying to. Now, I've got a few useful links for you to stay in touch with me and to help yourselves with CVs and cover letters. If you want to take a screenshot or a photo of that, I'll leave it up there for about 10 seconds, and then I will stop sharing the screen, and then we'll go into Q&A, so you can ask any questions that you've got. I'm closing it in 10, 9, 8, 7.
Great. Thank you very much for all that. We've already got a few questions in, so we can get started straight away. So we have one question here that says someone's studying electronic engineering and asking, is it possible to get into IBD, PE, VC, and what can they do with an engineering degree in general? I mean, I think you already mentioned a bit about the transferability of different degrees, but if you want to build on that.
Yeah, I think having an engineering degree is one of the best degrees you can have in this day and age. You can, of course, you can get into IBD and all those other careers that you mentioned, but like I try and tell students, it doesn't matter. Like your degree is just one part of the jigsaw puzzle, right? So you need to do well in your degree. You need to have good experience, extracurricular activities. You need to be able to get into interviews and comfortably talk about all the stuff going on in IBD in order to secure an offer. Now, personally, I would say if you want to break into PE or VC, most people do IBD first and then do a year or two and then go into PE or VC. But yeah, engineering degree, like it's not going to put you at a disadvantage. So yeah, in terms of what you can do with it, most at the graduate level, most companies and roles will accept any degree unless it's extremely niche and specific. So you should be fine with that.
Great. Another question here about what are alternative options to investment banking within financial services and business and entrepreneurship? Again, I think you touched on it a little bit, but if you've got anything else to add.
Alternative options, honestly, there's so many jobs in the world. Like, yeah, like typically most people that go into banking either go into, they apply to either consulting, whether that's investment consulting or professional services or management consulting. Then you've got banking. Within investment banks, you have lots of different divisions. The investment banking division is different to the sales and trading division, to private banking, to asset management, operations, risk, finance, HR, so on and so forth. A lot of people forget that if you apply to Google, you know, that doesn't mean you need to be a software developer, because Google has software engineering and development roles. They've got sales roles, they've got finance, HR, so on and so forth. So every single company you think of, Facebook, Tesla, Goldman Sachs, startups, they have so many different roles. And that's why it goes back to what I mentioned earlier. Explore these different roles, because a lot of students just want to go for what everyone's talking about, which is investment banking, when there's all these other better opportunities elsewhere.
Great. We have a couple questions about this topic, so I'll bring it up now. It's
Sure.
Specifically for master's students who miss the chance of a spring week and summer internship. How can they go about competing, and what can they do for the graduate programs to set themselves?
Yeah, it's always, so I'll be honest with you guys, it's always trickier when you haven't got a spring week or an internship, because most of the internship offers go to spring week offer holders who convert their spring weeks to internships. Most of the grad scheme offers go to those who succeeded on their internships. What you can do, this is the order from best to worst: relevant experience, other internships, any type of experience at the given type of firm that you're applying to. It's the best, but it's the hardest to get. After that, irrelevant experience. So maybe if you can't get into banking, try get consulting experience, because all of these, right, they, once again, at the graduate level, it's the skills that you learn. They're all transferable skills. They're all similar skills. Consulting, banking, law, etc., interpersonal skills, analytical skills, communication, X, Y, Z. It's all very relevant skills to each other. And so relevant experience, irrelevant experience, you can think of niche firms, not big brand names. Those might be easier to break into. Then you want to do things like extracurricular activities, be part of societies. Don't just be a member of a society. A lot of you are watching this, you know, on your CV, you might put member of King's Business Club Society. But what's better and what stands out more on your CV is president of King's Business Club Society, or head of marketing, head of whatever it is. If you have a leadership role in a society, it stands out 10 times more than just being a member. Anyone can be a member, not everyone can be a leader, right? And then it's things like volunteering. So it's always a tricky one because a lot of people are in this position. They missed out on spring weeks, internships, etc., and they don't know what to do. As a master's student, you can apply for. So if you're a graduate, you can apply to do a master's, and then you can still apply for summer internships. So a lot of people do that. But honestly, it's just building your CV with relevant experience, irrelevant experience, extracurriculars, and voluntary work. Sorry, that's the honest truth on that one.
And just building what you said about relevant experience, what's your take on, for example, people who want to break into investment banking or a specific area, but when they're applying for internships, they maybe have an internship in a different area, but still kind of in the banking sphere.
Yeah.
Is it possible, or how easy is it to kind of transfer between those different divisions within banking?
Yeah, it's definitely possible. I would say know your reasons why, because at the end of the day, you're going to be in an interview trying to pitch. Every single one of you needs to get good at pitching yourselves, because that is an interview. You're pitching yourself to someone that's either going to give you a job or not. So you need to be able to know why you don't want to work in, let's say, operations, and why you want to work in banking, why you don't want to work in asset management, and why you want to work in trading. Know your reasons, explain what didn't work from your previous experiences. But when you are doing a spring internship or a summer internship, make sure you network. Like, you've got your card that gives you access to this big organization. Put coffee catch-ups into people's calendars, meet as many people from different divisions. It's encouraged, because end of the day, look, you're on a mission. You need to go into that company and secure an offer. Even if you don't like it, secure an offer as a safety net. You don't want to graduate without a job, right? So network, know your reasons why you don't want to work somewhere and why you do want to work somewhere. And yeah, just make sure it's easier. You have to be tactical and strategic. It's easier to move from operations or risk into the front office divisions like asset management, trading, or investment banking. And the reason for that is operations, which is back office, and risk, which can be middle or front office, they do similar work to the front office. They are helping directly these front office divisions. If you're working in HR or finance or audit, it's kind of trickier to move because they're not really working closely with the front office divisions. And also you could do 2 years in the back office and move to the front office, because people are leaving every so often from the front office. So seats open up, they're looking for hires, and the firm will naturally hire internally, so for someone from the back office, as opposed to external hires. So yeah, keep that in mind.
Great. So it's about being as relevant as you can make it, I guess.
Yeah.
You mentioned earlier about not wanting to put like specific modules on your CV necessarily, but somebody asked a question about, would you say it's worth putting specialist modules? And they gave the example of derivative pricing modules on your CV, even if you're doing kind of econ and finance as your degree.
You can, but it's more impressive to see those modules on a CV for someone who's not doing an econ and finance degree. And I say that because if I see a CV and it's someone studying history or economics, and then I see they've taken the time out to do a course on derivatives or pricing options, I'm like, okay, this person's taken time out of their degree to learn about financial markets. But if I'm seeing it on someone that's doing econ and finance, it's a given. They have to do that anyway. I know they do that because it's part of their degree. So whether you put it in or not doesn't really make a big difference, to be fair. Sorry to interrupt. A lot of it is subjective, though. Your CV, you might get lucky and it might land in front of someone that really likes it. Or you might get unlucky. It might land in front of someone that thinks, nah, I can't click with this. I'm throwing it in the bin. So a lot of it is luck.
You mentioned earlier about the importance of networking. So we have a question here about what kind of a message is a good starter message for networking, and something that's not too cliche, because I'm sure there's lots of people who kind of run with the same one-liners or couple sentences. So how would you approach that?
What's the question again? Sorry, I just want to make sure I answer it properly.
Yeah, so a good starter message for networking that isn't too cliche.
Message, as in like if you're reaching out to someone online, or?
I think it means, yeah, through LinkedIn or something. If you're sending someone a message, capture their attention without being?
Yeah, I would say just in one or two sentences. Look, hey, I'm XYZ. I'm studying this and this at uni, and I saw your profile on blah blah blah. I'm keen on pursuing a career in banking or whatever it is, asset management, etc. I'd love to pick your brains on blah blah blah. But that's a very generic message, and if that person gets that message from 10 different people, they're probably not going to respond to everyone. How you can make it stand out more is do your background research on this individual. Have they been on any podcasts? Have they written any articles? Did they do something that's, different? And then include that in your message. And then immediately it shows them, okay, this person's done their research. They're a bit more serious than the other people who have just sent a copy paste message. So I might respond to them. That's the best way to do it.
Yeah, so building up kind of as much of a personal relationship as you can with the tools.
Before it's even started.
Yeah. So we have another one here about how to approach getting first-hand work experience given the pandemic, with most offices being closed or restricted. So I assume it means kind of outside of the formal internship application.
Yeah, it's tricky. Right now, it's a tough time because of the pandemic. So honestly, you have to get creative. Maybe like I've seen a lot of students and graduates start their own, I don't know, side hustle, start a podcast, start a newsletter that updates weekly on financial markets or something that you're interested in, blogging, etc. It's hard to get work experience now because of the pandemic. So I would say you need to be a bit more creative in your approach. But now is a tough time, so don't let that make you feel too disheartened from applying.
Sure.
Like companies understand this. Companies understand that in the last year, exams, studying, university, it's all been disrupted, so they might be a bit more lenient towards applicants.
Another question here, based off something we were talking about earlier about the back or middle office and working the way to front office. So it says, for a postgrad student, would you recommend an off-cycle internship application, or would you recommend back/middle office roles working their way to front office?
Do both if you can. Like, spread your eggs in different baskets. You'll probably have more of a chance to break into back office because it's less competitive. And if you want, use 2 email addresses to apply to the same firm. You have to hustle your way in, so yeah, spread your eggs. But yeah, I might lean more towards the back office because it increases my chances of getting in.
Okay. And then another one here about what's your take on getting an internship in a boutique investment bank compared to a bulge bracket investment bank?
It's great. Like, a lot of people start off in boutiques and then they move to the big banks. A lot of people go the other way. They start off in the big banks and then they realize they will have more responsibility and more of a presence at a boutique bank. And so there's higher earning potential there. You have to understand the big banks have the brand power, right? So it looks good on your CV, it's great, but you're only a small cog in a big machine, right? Whereas if you go to a boutique, you can probably climb faster. It's less structured compared to the big banks. So there's lots of pros and cons. If you can get into a boutique or a big one, take it. If you get offers from both, you're in a great position, and that's something that you need to decide on.
Sure. Another one here kind of about options post-bachelor's. So would you recommend taking a master's course or going to an MBA? And also, I guess, on that master's course, are there any specific types of master courses that are better than others? Or is it, again, like with bachelor's, where you're saying the degree isn't that important?
So, good question. If you're going to do a master's, if you wanted to break into banking, but you couldn't, and you're going to do a master's, make sure that master's is in a relevant subject. So this is where it matters a lot, actually. So a master's in private equity, a master's in economics, finance, whatever it is, it needs to be relevant. So that's where it matters most. If you're going to do a master's, try your best to secure an internship, because you can apply for those, I think, in your final year of uni, if you're going to do a master's or MBA. MBA costs bucks. So if you got that money, up to you if you want to do it, right? But masters, you don't, like, MBA doesn't guarantee anything. Although those who have MBAs, yes, you can start at a more senior position. So you would start as an associate as opposed to an analyst. So typically associates have 3 to 5 years experience, and that comes with a higher pay package, but it comes at a huge cost for you initially, right? So I would personally say it depends on your circumstances. And also an MBA is more, it's like business management. It's not so much banking specific. Masters will give you that banking specific knowledge at a high level. And then you've got things like CFA, FRM, all of these qualifications. You can do those. CFA level 1 looks good on the CV of a graduate because it shows that they're serious about breaking into banking. So yeah, consider that as well.
And also with those masters, so would you say doing a master's in something that's a little bit less related, so maybe like a political economy, something like that, would be not that important because it's not specialized for banking? Or
yeah, it just sends the message that you're still not sure what you want to do. Most of my mates from Queen Mary went on, if they didn't get a grad scheme offer, but they wanted to break into banking, they went and did masters and make sure it's at a better uni than the one you're currently at. If it's not a top tier uni, they went to LSE, Cambridge, etc., and did their masters in economics, finance, private equity, and then they got offers from banks later on.
Yeah, so it's really about being as focused as you can.
Yeah.
Okay. Another one here about just general advice on how to tackle assessment centers and use in general.
Assessment centers, I don't know nowadays how they do it, because typically you go into assessment centers, there's you and like 6, 7, 8 other candidates. They get you to do group exercises and they see how you work as part of a team. You want to be that person that brings others in. You are inclusive. You work well as part of a team. You want to be not too silent. You want to contribute to the meeting, to the discussion. You want to problem solve. You want to work on your presentation skills because you're going to be asked to present your findings. Assessment centers are just there to see how you work in a working environment. So you want to be yourself. There's an interview typically. And so, you know, typical stuff. The key sections that I mentioned on the cover letter, why the firm, why the division, why you, create 1-page files, as much info as you can on each of those, and use that as interview prep as well. And then you're going to need things like commercial awareness, technical questions. What is a discounted cash flow if you're going into investment banking? What is a pension fund for asset management? So on and so forth. So yeah, assessment centers, there will also be tests. So make sure those, even if you don't do well on the tests, it doesn't mean you don't get through it to an offer. What's important on the assessment centers is the group exercises and the interviews.
Yeah. Last couple of questions before we wrap it up. So we have one here about programming languages, and it asks, are they programming languages such as Python and HTML better for your application?
They don't really matter if you're applying to any division other than technology. Now, this is a good point that we're touching on, because in the last few years, demand for technologists or computer scientists has kind of increased heavily. So a lot of the startup world and big tech, so Facebook, Google, etc., are hiring tech talent, computer software engineers. And so what the investment banks have done is started paying technologists a lot more. They're giving them like, oh, you don't need to wear suits into work, etc., because that talent is in demand. Now, if you want to, so you can include that on your CV if you're applying for tech divisions. Include it anyways if you're not applying to tech divisions, but it's not as relevant than if you are applying to technology division. A lot of students ask me, investment banking, join an investment bank's technology division first, and then go into the startup or big tech world, or do it the other way. I've seen more go from banking technology divisions into the tech, big tech and startups, as opposed to the other way. But I would say if you're a computer scientist, no point, like you're going to have a more exciting career at big data, big tech companies and startups, as opposed to investment banks, because that's not their bread and butter. So a lot of the technology is old school. So you're going to be doing fixes and boring stuff, as opposed to working on super interesting, relevant stuff over here.
Okay. And for the last question, I'm just going to combine two because I think they go quite well. So it's someone asking who's studying Spanish and management if they have the same kind of chances with not doing maybe as specialized thing as we were talking about earlier. And then also, in addition to that, how important is it to speak other languages as well as English?
Yeah.
How does that help?
When I was at Goldman's, the analyst next to me studied Spanish, not management, just Spanish. And he got in. So Spanish and management, all of that doesn't matter. It's fine. If you know your stuff when it comes to interviews, you know why you're interested in a given area, you can converse with the person in front of you. That's all that matters. And obviously you need a strong CV cover letter to get you there in the first place. And then what was the second part of the question, sorry?
Just like how important is it to speak other languages?
Oh yeah, languages. That helps. Look, in any walk of life, being multilingual is a pro, it's a benefit. A practical example is if you can speak, let's say French or Spanish, whatever it is, you apply to a firm and there's no headcount on the UK sales team, you might be able to join the French sales team or the Frankfurt office or the Spanish sales team, etc. So having languages helps. On the trading floor, for example, there are so many different teams, so many different areas of the globe that the company covers products for. So you've got teams that sell currencies in Europe, you've got a MENA, Middle East and North Africa team, so on and so forth. So knowing these languages always helps because all these investment banks are really global organizations with global products and global clients. And so, yeah, having different languages under your belt is a good thing to have, and list it all on your CV.
Yeah. Well, great. Thank you very much for your speech today, and thank you for answering all those questions. I'm sure everyone in the audience found it very interesting and helpful for all their applications going forward. I'd just like to say to everyone watching, please bear in mind we've got some great events we've recently posted on our YouTube channel, including with Nobel laureate Professor Yunus. So I'd really...
Oh, right. Sorry to interrupt. When is that?
Oh, that's already happened.
Oh, right. Fair.
Already been posted, yeah. Nice. So I'd really encourage you to check those out if you're interested, and I'm sure we've got some great ones coming up. So please check us out on all social media updates for more events in the future, and if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask. And thank you once again to Afzal for taking the time out of his day to do this. We all really appreciate it. So thank you and have a good evening.
Thank you for having me. Take care, guys.